Hi and welcome to my channel. I am Tammy Ozturk, the designer at badbobbin.com. I'm here today to show you this fantastic all in the hoop handbag. All put together in the hoop and just with either rivets or Chicago screws. The bottom is done with rivets and Chicago screws, or you can do all rivets. I will show you throughout the video what can be used. This one has a magnetic snap. The inside liner is with felt or any type of material that is non-fraying that you can use. Non-fray. You don't want to use woven because the fray is going to come out unless you are a purse maker and know how to stop that fray. Some have some techniques that they use. So it's quite spacey, quite spacey, roomy. Look at that. They can put a tape dispenser in there. I'll teach you how to keep it together, how to form it, how to work with it, what kind of snaps we can use or what kind of closures you can use, the handle. Here's another one in a different fabric. This was our prototype. So this was done with the darker blue and using some brass rivets. So this was the prototype, which we made all our mistakes in this one and all that kind of stuff and figured out how to make the good one. The nice stiff one, we've got a material that goes in there, and at the cutting table I will show you how to do all that. So this is the Rivet Handbag #1 by badbobbin.com. That's me. And that's where you can get the purse when it is available. It'll be in the comments when it'll be available, and usually the first week there will be a discount, so check that and make sure you're part of a Facebook group as well. And the back, and it's all done in the hoop, and all these pieces here are combined in the hoop. So I'm going to show you how to do all that, and we're headed to the cutting table right now so I can show you everything you're going to need. If you like this, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. Would love to have you subscribe. See my little thumbs up here, and ring the bell for more notifications with some great more ideas coming your way. So let's go on to the cutting table and learn how to make this little bag. All right, we're at the cutting table and we've got quite a bit of things on here on this table that we're going to go through. I'm going to go kind of quickly because once we get to the part of doing it, then I can explain a little more about it. But these are some of the things you're going to need. There are written directions, and I just did the first page so that I can show you that on the first page we have the dimensions of the panels and pieces that we all need from vinyl and felt. Felt will be the best liner because it doesn't fray when it's cut because there are raw edges on this. So it's up to you to find a fabric, or if you're going to do a fabric, then use the fray check around it. Not sure if that's going to be 100%, so I have never used the woven type cotton fabric for a liner and then cut raw edges with it. So it's up to you. You can try it, and if you have, let us know down below how it worked for you. Then for the in between the pieces, so with the vinyl, let's go back, sorry. For the vinyl, I used this is what's left out of one roll of this, and this is a really nice vinyl from My Punk Embroidery. So out of the whole roll, this is what's left of that roll. So I just wanted to let you know that you're going to use quite a bit. You need quite a bit of vinyl for this project. The dimensions are all here. And then for the interfacing in between the felt and the vinyl, which is a stiffening, is what we need. It needs to be stiff. This purse definitely does need to have a stiffener in it. I've already gone through many different prototypes to figure all this out. So this is called, from Pellon, 70 Peltex. So it's 70 Peltex. It is a thick interfacing. I mean, it's kind of like felt that's been pressed really hard, and it does have a thickness to it and a stiffness to it, which is what we need. It does come different ways. It comes with an iron-on, so you'll peel this off and it'll heat secure it, so it has a glue, which we will not use because you cannot heat it onto felt very well, or especially on vinyl, because they're both going to kind of melt. So we don't have to have that heat and bond type interfacing for the Peltex. It just needs to be cut exactly to the dimensions, cannot be over. You don't want it to be under. It needs to be to these exact dimensions. That's what's going to fit inside the placement box for this. So with the Peltex, we are going to secure it by either tacky spray, but for the Peltex, I would use some sort of a glue, like a glue stick. I will do different ways so we can test it and see how it works. Or there's double-sided tape. So there's double-sided tape like Scotch Tape brand. I found this one at the 99-cent or Dollar Tree. Sorry, I found this at the Dollar Tree. It is a double-sided thing where you tape, tack the one side down and then you'll peel the tape off. Don't know how this will work. It's tacky, but it doesn't feel as tacky as the Heat and Bond brand. And the Heat and Bond brand is a double-sided hem tape. I think it's called hem tape, or at least it's double-sided. So one side is really, really tacky, and then you peel it off, and the other side is really tacky. So I'll be trying different things. This one you may only need like 2 strips. This one we may need like 3 or 4 strips. So we'll test it out, but you definitely need something to keep it tacked down all the time. Whereas sometimes the tacky spray and adhesive sprays kind of wear out and then they'll slip. I think with the tapes and good glues, I think we'll get that interfacing to stay. So we have our different sizes and different cutouts. There are steps to this, and I'm out of order for some reason, but we can get back in order real quick here. And that's going to be number 1. So you'll know the order here for parts 1, part 2, part 3, and you need to definitely go in that order. Definitely go in the order. So for our first part, it'll be like our flap. So I did print them out. I do have PDF in there, so you'll be able to print them out as well and know. And there's an inner box, which is the placement box for our Peltex, which is this right here. So it's exactly right in there. And then once you get that tacked, then you're just going to clip the corners to where they need to be clipped inside. So as we go through on the video to this portion at the machine, I'll explain all those different steps. So everything is cut and everything has its Peltex liner cut exactly. When it comes to the side panels, this is the bottom. When it comes to our side panels, there's 2 different ways of doing it as well. In the hoop, there's like you can do them both at the same time. I give that option, and then the other option is if you do it singly by itself. So there is a part 5 and the part 6. So each one is different. They line up a little bit different. So you'll do each one, so 5 and 6. And you'll see the different options, and as we go, I'll explain some of them. Same thing with having your side little pieces for your strap, and then the handle part. You can do it all in one hoop. I give that option, or you can do each one individually. If you don't even want to make these tabs, you don't have to. You can just make handles. So it's pretty easy, and a lot of options on that and how to work with that. Then we have our hoop, and our hoop we're using is the 11.8 by 7.9, so we call that our 12 by 8 hoop, and that's here. I will be doing other options as we go on different sizes of this bag, but this right now is our first bag and number 1. Stabilizers. I am using a little bit heavier, thicker type paper kind. This is not my favorite, but we need as much stiffness for this bag as we can get. So I would use a medium to a heavy tearaway stabilizer, and you want to make sure that it's got some stiffness to it. So this one is a little bit different brand than what I normally use. And this one is kind of like a paper. It's kind of like that cottony paper, and when it tears, it kind of leaves a lot of fibers. So we need that. And we'll scoot that up out of our way. Then we have a lot of other options of things that we're going to need to fit to. On our first part, which is the flap, we need to figure out our closures and what closures we're going to use. If you use just a number 20 cam snap for the purse, then just do your little markings that are already there that are set. It'll show you placement holes for the front flap and for the front panel of where that snap will go. And then that'll be done towards the end. If we're going to do like a magnetic closure, this is one type right here, which I did use on the other bag. I used it on, this is my prototype bag, so there's a lot of mistakes in this one. So with this magnetic closure, you know, it seats in there, and it closes and stays pretty well. So with this one, you'll be adding this piece in the hoop. So we're going to be adding this first. And because of the way it is, like I said, I didn't add this first. I ended up adding it after the purse was complete. So that's why there's like glue and a bunch of garbage here, and why this is not exactly how it should be, but it will. So when we do this piece, and if you use this magnetic closure one with the prongs, it'll be added while it's in the hoop. And once you add it, the little prongs are going to be exposed on this outside along with its little disc. So I added that step in there to do a placement, and then adding a little piece of vinyl, and then it's going to do a nice little bean stitch oval to kind of look like a little patch or a little applique type thing. So this is going to be your cover up for the backing of this. So you'll put tape on this so it won't get caught on the plate, and then you'll add that little vinyl piece for that. So that's if you do the one with the prongs, you'll be adding it first. This is a new one that I found on Amazon, so links will be in down below. But this one that I found on Amazon can be added afterwards if you don't mind. This is almost like a rivet, where you just add the little cap to the back side of it, and then you're going to use the tool to smash it down. It seats in it. And then this little thing goes in it, just exactly. I'm not sure if this will stay, so I don't really want to put it on yet. I have not used this yet, but I will use it in this, so you'll see how it goes. And so it snaps onto it like like a rivet does, and then we're going to smash it down. And here's there's a hole punch if we need to, or we can use our leather punch for hole punching, which you'll need to do when it comes to all the little holes that we're going to be putting our Chicago screws or our rivets into. So this little new guy I want to use and see how it works, and it comes with all the tools. It's from Amazon, so this is another type closure. And then if you happen to do purses and have other ways and other closures, let us know down below which ones you've used, and maybe add some pictures if you can in there, or put them on the group page when it comes to this bag and it's released. Show us what you did for your closure if you didn't use either a cam snap or a magnetic snap of either one of these types. Let us know. That'd be great. So then for adding our panels on the side of the bag and completing our bag, we are going to use either rivets or Chicago screws. Pretty much everybody knows what the rivets are, and this will be probably the 8mm rivets for the amount of thickness that we're going to go through, which will be 2 layers of vinyl and 2 layers of felt. So it's really not a whole lot. So you want to at least have the 8mm rivets. There's also jeweled rivets that we can use. So your options are just endless. So Chicago screws, and a lot of people are saying, what are Chicago screws? They are available on Amazon and through Tandy and other leather working companies. And what you want to get is the 5x4mm Chicago screws. So like I said, this will be on Amazon. I'll put the link in there. So there's 100 Chicago screws in here. The colors are multiple, obviously, and then you want the 5x4mm. So they do make the shanks longer. You don't want longer because you want to be as tight as you can to keep your fabrics together. So this has the 2 pieces, and there's like one with nothing on the back side. It's just flat, and then it's open, and then you have one that's got a Phillips, or you can do a flathead screw on the other side, and then there's little screws. So that little screw is going to go inside, and then you're just going to take your screwdriver, little screwdriver, hand screw, palm, little tiny thing, whatever. You just need a screwdriver, and it's going to screw in there. So why I have the rubber band, or you can use rubber gloves or anything with a grip, is you just put the rubber band on the tip of your finger, and you're going to lay that on the flat side. Since there's nothing there to really grip it or hold it, you're going to lay the rubber part to grip it, and then use your screw and screw it down really tight. And there we go. So that'll give you a little hint that my husband gave me on the rubber band to keep it on one side. So that is a Chicago screw. They vary in price depending on where you get them. Do your little research on Amazon and find the best price that you want to, or different companies too. So you will need, it says it in the directions ahead of time, 36 to 40 10mm cap rivets or Chicago screws. And that's to keep our purse and put our purse together. So you need anywhere from 36 to 40 of them. And that's to put your handle on. And I suggest for the handle to actually be rivets instead of Chicago screws. I mean, I did use the Chicago screws on here because I ran out of rivets, but you know, that's what it looks like for the handle. Sometimes they can come undone, just all depends. That's why I said you really want to screw them down tight. So we will get started. So, and then also, sorry, almost forgot this part. You will need your straight blade and a rotary. This is an investment. If you don't have one, this would, you know, investment to get this, definitely. A lot of your straight edges and everything, to get them straight, rotary and the straight blade is the best. Yes, you can cut with scissors. Yes, there's a lot of us that are, you know, good at cutting straights or good at, you know, curves and having a nice blade on our scissors to cut. But for this many things and pieces and straight edges and stuff and things lining up, I suggest a rotary and a straight blade on that. 4-inch curved embroidery scissors to clip those threads, our lighter to singe those threads, and then clips. This is an option as well. At the end of our cutting and everything out, I let it sit overnight with clips to keep my sides bent over, and I clip them down kind of just to give it a little bit of a memory to keep it folded. And you'll see when we get to that part what I mean. And tape. Definitely need tape. We need tape, need tape. Very important that 3 of the things are done in the hoop, and we're adding a piece or a panel in the hoop to sew on top of our other panel. Definitely need to tape it down. If we're going to go over our stitch lines, you want to make sure it's a tape that's going to come off good and you're not going to get stuck under your threads. So definitely need tape to secure and tape down our panels when we have to line them up. So we have everything and we're kind of ready to go. I have everything pre-cut, and we're going to start with our part number 1, which is our top flap or front flap of our purse. Head on over to the machine. All right, we're at the machine for our first step, which is going to be our top flap. This will be the flap part with the handle. And I have my 2 options that I'm going to show you for our closure. And our little patch little piece. Forgot to cut this little patch piece. So this little patch piece is 2 1/4 by 1 3/4. And okay, so our first thing we're going to do, put it into the machine, and we're going to stitch out our placement lines. Okay, and let me make sure I've got it set right. So I'm going to be using white thread. You can use black thread. You can use any color you want, or blue, whatever you're using. You can either contrast the same color as it. I'm just going to go ahead and use my white. And here we go. Okay, so we have our placement lines, and I know they're in white. Sorry, I'll write one on white, but we can still see here. So I have this, this is the outer one, which is going to be our placement for the felt on the back and for our pellon. I'm sorry, and for the vinyl on the front. And then this inside one, this is where our Peltex is going to go. So my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tacky spray, and I'm going to add my felt to the back. I'm going to do my felt on the back first. That way when I flip it over, I can work on the front and not worry about if I put something on the front, it's going to fall off or not be there. So I'm going to use my tacky spray. Do that real quick. Add this right to the back and make sure that we've got it centered over our placement. It will hang over a little bit on each side, so that's our little forgiveness on that line. Turn it over, and I'm going to press it down to make sure it stays. And then we want to make sure also that we put it back in the machine correctly too. So we got to make sure we remember which is the bottom and top. So it's tacked on there. It's pretty secure. So I'm going to now use my Pellon or my Peltex. And this one, you really want to make sure that this is, it doesn't matter which way you do it, you know, which side is which, but you really want to make sure you have it right inside those guidelines. You don't want to go over. There is no forgiveness. So you don't want to go over the guidelines. And you want to make sure they're right on. And then I'm going to use the double-sided tape first. Let's use this tape to see how well it works. So I'm going to put a couple strips of this along, and this one just tears with your finger. So I'm going to put, I want to put like 4 strips on it. Across. Oh, it feels like it's getting stickier as we go on the roll. Interesting. Okay. And then on the bottom here, I'm only going to go small piece because I'm going to cut off those corners. So, and you can either attach it to the back of the Peltex, or you can attach it to the actual stabilizer and then add it on top. So you can do it both ways. So I want to make sure I've got it down really well. And then before I actually tack it, I'm going to line it up, and then I'm going to find out where my guidelines are so I can cut my corners off. So it's kind of like right there, and the one is up here. So I'm going to go straight across. This one here, and about there. So I will take my scissors and I will cut straight across, and one more cut straight across. There we go. I cut those corners off so that they will exactly, there we go, on those rounded corners. All right, and now I'm going to tear off. It'll come off, I'm not sure. I've never used this one before, so oh, there we go. Yeah, it works pretty well. Take my strips off. There we go. Okay, so we've got that ready and off, and I'm going to line it up right inside my box. There we go. There we go. And it's tacked down. Press down on it. So actually it's, yep, it's there. It's pretty tacked down. So we have that set, and the next thing is going to be our vinyl for the top, and depending on our directions that we want to go, the flap is going to be this way, hanging down. So if it's directional vinyl, then you want to make sure that the top of your design's here. So let me get, I am going to use tacky spray again on this one. And I think I just sprayed my fingers. I did a little bit. Alrighty, and then we're going to lay this on top. And this kind of has a little bit of a direction, like which way the flowers kind of go in the leaves, but it's not too bad. So we're going to center it, make sure it's lined up, and then I'm just going to smooth it out. Make sure it's all in there. And tack down so it's not going anywhere, and we're all set. So we have our back felt piece, and we have our front ready to go. Or you can tape, if you don't want to use tacky spray, you're more than welcome to use that masking tape, and you'll be taping your sides down in the corners and that type of thing. All right, we're going to go back into the hoop, and we're going to stitch out the next step, which is going to be all around, and then it's going to be our holes for our handle and the marking hole for where our snap will be, or our magnetic closure and stuff. Then our last stop, I'm going to stop, well, actually 2 stops before that. I'm going to stop and then add in my magnetic part or my closure or that, and then do the last part, which will be our little patch. Okay, so it has done the final bean stitch tack down, and you can feel the thickness, and we've got our pell on in between it, or pell tacks. It did our guidelines or guide holes for our handle. Completely up to you if you are making your own bag and you're familiar with bag making. If you want to not have these holes and wait until the end and put your handle where you feel you want to put the handle, that's fine. This is just somewhat of a guideline of where it might be placed. And the same thing with your snap and closure. I have done a little marking, and it lines up with the front panel as well, so it's up to you if you want to wait on that and make your own markings. Up to you. The center dot lines up if you do the number 20 cam snap. Then I also have the guideline for where our patch will go over. That will go on top of that once we add our piece. So either one of our magnetic pieces that we do, I'll show you how to do the one with the prongs real quick, somewhat. And you would set your little mark or your disc over your hole, and then you're going to, with a pen, a marker, you're going to mark in the slots right here, because in those slots are going to be the 2 piece prongs that come through. So if you mark it with your slots, then what you'll do is take a razor blade or your scissors. Probably the best thing to do is to take it to your table and use like a razor blade or a knife, a box cutter that's got a sharp, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to cut in those slots right there. And in those slots, you want to make sure you go all the way through to your felt in the back. So I'm going to go to the table really quick. I don't want to do the camera back and forth, so I'm just going to make, well actually I'm not going to use these, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like and how it's done, but I'm actually not going to use it. I'm going to do the rivet ones. So to show you how this is done, let me go to the table really quick, and I'm going to make those slices and have your little razor blade tip kind of go through them. Make sure it goes back to the other side. I lifted it up a tiny bit and I can feel it going through. I don't want to do too much and make it that big. Okay, so I will show you. And with this one, this would be the male part. So it's going to be the part with the little divot coming out. That is the top part, and then the part that goes on the front of the bag, the receiving part, which is on your bag, will be the female part, and they'll line up. So with this one, you're going to actually put it onto the back. Find your little holes, and I can kind of feel where the holes are. I don't know if they got deep enough or not. But they're going to pop through just like that. So it went through here. So this will be exposed. We're leaving that because you want your snap to be, whoops, you can't see that, sorry. So you want to see the snap in there. And then it comes through the top. And your prongs will come through, and you're going to add the disc on top of your prongs, and then you're going to bend the prongs outwards. So you'll take like the back of your scissors or the blade just carefully, and you're going to actually push the prongs and push the prongs. So you want the prongs to go outwards. and then that will be secure. And then once you've done that, what you're going to do is put a piece of tape over this so it doesn't catch on your plate. So I'm going to take this out. Even though I made those marks, you're not going to see them because I'm going to go ahead and use the rivet one. See how this one works? I have not ever used this one before. So we'll see how it works. It's the first time for me and you on this one. So I'm going to have to make the hole. So I'm going to use the hammer and the punch because I can't get my leather punch in there, so we actually have to use the punch that comes with it. So that's going to go right in the center of that little dot that we made. So I'm going to go to my table, grab my board, and I'm going to take my hammer and the punch and make the hole. Sorry it's off camera, but I will show it to you. Alrighty. So I used a little board. I happened to get this at IKEA, this little cutting board at IKEA. So I'm using it to use, you know, for the price of what it cost, to do my little hammering and the punch. So the punch went through, hammered it down, and it made it all the way through. So there's the hole. You can see it. So on this one, we're going to take the same thing. We're going to use the male part, and that goes on the bottom, and we're going to pop the little rivet end through here, and then I'm going to put the cap on it. Does the same thing. Does a little snap, kind of like a rivet, and you can do it either way. So if you don't want to cover this up, you can leave the little silver button or brass or whatever color you want to use. I'm doing silver, and I'm going to use silver Chicago screws and all. So you can either leave that button like it is if you want, or we're going to do that patch and it's going to cover it up and just do a little decorative patch. That way you won't have anything on there. It's up to you. Or you can add a decorative. I know they make little like brooch type things with the prongs that you can stick through and it'll attach on the other side. But I think I'm going to use this rivet one. I need to set it. So I'm going to grab my setter pieces. And in this tool thing, the setter piece has two sides. So there's our male side and the female side, and then our punch. So we have the male sticking out. So we're going to use the part that has the divot in here, and it's going to set right in. And it's actually magnetic, so it's kind of cool that it sets properly. So I'm going to go back to my table and set this real quick. That's pretty cool that it's magnetic. So you want to be careful that you're not stretching it in the hoop. We only actually have one thing to sew left, so it doesn't really, I mean, you still don't want to stretch it. Sorry, that was kind of loud, but actually that worked really well. It's a strong magnet, didn't want to come off. So here's our back side still, and then here's the front. The rivet covered it and went well. So you can actually just leave that if you want. So just the step before that does the last part here for our placement, you can eliminate that and not have that little oval and leave it like this if you want, depending on what type of closures you use. If you do use the one with the prongs, you definitely have to cover it up. The prongs will be sticking through with that disc. That is sitting up here, and you definitely want to cover this up. So here's our little patch. I'm going to use a little bit of stick glue for this one. Don't need tacking, you know, just a little bit, or you can use your tape. It's up to you. So I'm going to use a little bit of my Gorilla stick glue, and I'm going to lay that over top, centering it right in on top of the oval, or you can tape it down if you want. So let's do that. We'll use a little bit of tape just to make sure on the little corner here. It's got that little button part sticking up, so just so that it doesn't shift on me. And our last step for this, and I'm going to pop it back in the machine and stitch out the little bean stitch that makes our little patch. All done. So quick and easy. And I forgot to do something which made it, I forgot to put the tape on here. So my machine's different. If you're on a single needle, you really want to make sure you put that tape here to cover that. I heard it when it came back out, it kind of caught on the plate. So reminder, remember to cover that up with tape. So take our tape off. I save some of my pieces. Sometimes they're still good. This is our back side, what it looks like. And this is the front side, what it looks like. Actually, this video does not do the color of either one of these things very well. This is a really pretty blue, and this is actually a turquoise, not what it's showing on video. It's kind of crazy. But now what we're going to do is take this out of the machine, or sorry, we're going to take this out of our hoop, and we're going to prepare this. While the other one's starting to stitch out, I'm going to prepare this. So you're going to cut your sides straight with your straight about 1/8 to 1/16. You want to get kind of close. We're going to trim around our patch so that it makes it look nice. We're going to trim around this about 1/8 as best as we can, and you can go ahead and actually cut all the way around if you want. Do it all at once. Do our straight and then use our scissors for the rest, and then do a straight. This piece here at the very top, this is going to attach to our next part. Our next panel is going to be our back piece, and I would say we can trim more off of it, but if you do the straight on this, do it at about the 1/8, and then if you need to, you can go back and trim more. But this is going to line up on our next piece, and you want to make sure everything is lined up properly and kind of pre-cut, or you can leave it long and cut it later. So let's prepare this and get ready for our next step. All right, we're on to step number 2, or part 2, I should say, not step. So part 2 is our back panel, and this also has the Peltex. And this is the printout that I've done. So in this printout, I'm going to explain to you, you'll see this long little box here at the bottom. So when this is in your machine, you want to make sure, like this is a multi-needle, so I'm making sure that the pattern's this way so that this long square is on the outside. That way, when I add this piece, and this is the flap, I actually prepared it ahead of time. So I did cut all my sides, and I cut around, and I cut our little patch out there. So that's what our little applique looks like at the bottom. And I did cut the top, and the top I've cut at the 1/8 with it on the line. And my sides I cut at 1/8 also, but I take my 1/8 line and I move it inside my stitch line. So it's a little bit tiny, less than the 1/8 exactly. So I did trim this all out, and it's prepared and ready to go, and it has our stiffener in it, and it's we're doing good. We've got some stiffness like we need. And this piece, when we attach it in the hoop towards the end, our last step, we want to make sure it's on the outside, or if you're in your single needle and you have your hoop in here and it's attached to the arm, you want to make sure this is going to be on this side so it's not hitting, because if your machine is on this side and you're trying to attach, it's going to keep hitting that arm and it's going to move this. So we want to make sure you put your hoop in here, your attachment arm is here, you want to make sure that this is onto that outside. So not sure how it's going to convert into your machine, so when you do it, I'm just making sure you know that this side has to be on the outside so that it's got room and it's not going to hit it and move it once we do it. So on to what we need to do. We have our vinyl, our felt, and our Peltex. And this is important as well. There is a placement line for the Peltex, and you're going to find out that it's up above and it's not going to be at the bottom, because the bottom part we don't need the double Peltex where we're going to attach our flap. So first step is going to be our placement lines. And here we go. We have our placement lines. Kind of hard to see, but oh, we can see it, not bad. So our inside box here is where we're going to put that Peltex. So I'm going to put my felt on the back first, and I'm going to use my tacky spray again. Be right back. I am outside. Quick spray. And we're back inside. All right. And I'm going to center it, making sure all sides are covered and done. Smooth it lightly. Don't press hard. You don't want to misplace out of your hoop. And then I'm going to fold it over really quick, press down to make sure it stays secured. If not using a tacky spray, you can go ahead and tape your corners, tape your sides, whatever it needs to on your taping to keep that down. So our next step is going to be our Peltex, which goes right inside the box if we cut properly, exactly how we need to. We don't want more hanging over. And this time I'm going to use the heat and bond tape. So this one I know is probably a little more expensive than that other one. The other one did hold pretty well. So I think with this one, I only need like 2 pieces because it's very, very sticky. And you can tear this one as well. It does tear. I'm going to go ahead and do it where I start with it on our stabilizer and see how this one works this way. So I think we only need 2 pieces. And I'm going to go up towards the top and towards the bottom. This is like super, super sticky. So I know it's a little more expensive also. So it's up to you which one you want to use. I found a little bit less expensive one. And I'm sure the Scotch tape one, double-sided Scotch tape, will work just as well too. So they have like a heavy duty one. This one, a little harder to get that paper off. So, little struggle here. Just what you want to see. There we go. All right, so I have my 2 strips here of our tape, double-sided heat and bond tape, hem tape. I'm not sure which one it's called, but it's very sticky and the thing didn't want to come off real well. So I'm going to add my Peltex, and I'm going to make sure it's lined up right inside that square. Everything's lined up. And I'm going to start with one end and I'm rolling it to the other end. So, and we're pressing down. There we go. So it's secure, it's on there, it's not going anywhere, it's not going to slip or fall. And then the next piece I'm going to add will be my vinyl, and I'm also going to use tacky spray on this as well. Spray. Alrighty. And so this is kind of directional. If you are using your directional vinyl, where this little strip is going to be that we're going to be adding our flap, that's going to be the top of your panel, and then this over here is the bottom of your panel. Okay? So if you're using a directional, you'll want to make sure that the top of your design is where the strip is. This is not exactly directional. Sometimes the flowers look like they're in, running one way or the other. So kind of looks like these are sitting upwards, and my flowers, the leaves are going upwards. So I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to press down, make sure it's secure. That did not feel good on my hand. Alrighty, and I'm going to put it back in the hoop. And the next thing is going to be the full tack down of the vinyl onto everything, sandwiching in that Peltex. Then it's going to do all the little placement holes for our rivets when that time comes. And then it's going to stop. And when it stops, I'm going to add my other piece, and we'll put it together in the hoop. Here we go. All right, so on to our next step, which is quite an important step and a little tricky step. So this takes practice and patience to get this right. And you really want to make sure it is secure. So everything's stitched out, are there little placement holes for our rivets. And then this little box down here is our important part. So this piece that we finished, we are going to line it up exactly, very carefully line this thing up and centered and everything, and we're going to tape it down really well. But we don't want to completely tape over where it's going to stitch. So that's the tricky part as well. This can also use a double-sided tape here if you want to help secure it. That's one great idea that I just now thought of for you. So sometimes things come to us really quickly after all these things that I've been practicing and doing this. So double-sided tape, actually I'm going to do that, and that will help us keep it secured. And then I'm going to use also I'm going to put tape on this to try to really keep it in the hoop and keep it exactly where we need to. So I'm going to show you really quick where we need to line it up, and then I'm going to do that, and I'm probably going to go to my table to do it, and then I'll bring it back and show it to you. So this line here needs to line up with this line exactly on top of it. So you'll be lifting your sides and sides to make sure that this line here is exactly on top of that one. And then making sure that this is completely centered. So these lines are a tad bit off because of the way it's going to lay and fold over. This had to be a tiny bit smaller. So they're pretty much almost right on, but they're just a tad, maybe 1/32 of an inch off maybe. So we want to make sure that this line here is lined up on here, and then it's going to sew an actual box like this on top of here. So that's why you need to make sure this is really pushed into the hoop. I will be right back. So I actually put the double-sided tape right here, so that way it's closer to here. Up here, I think once we line this up, we can maybe use a little piece of tape on each side to keep it down. That's another reason that if you are okay with, if you're okay with cutting once it's sewn, then you can leave that little extra here, making sure that all this lines up. If you have that extra, then you can tape on top of that extra and not worry about a stitch going through. So there's so many options and so many ways that we can do this and get things to work right. So I've actually stuck it, it's got the sticky tape on it. I've actually pushed it down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a piece of tape really close to get this into my hoop and get it pushed down. And this is lined up right on top of that other stitch line because it's actually going to come along here and stitch on top of that line again. So that's why it's important to line it up properly, because it is going to stitch on top of that. So, and you can kind of hold this while it's stitching too, if you want, try to, because it's a little stiffer, we can kind of bend it a little bit. So I've actually ran a piece of tape into here to try to keep it in the hoop. Like I said, if you have that extra left here and you want to cut it later, this tape goes right on top of there and can help secure it as well. You can run a whole piece if you want. So since this is in here pretty well, I think that double-sided tape is going to help as well. I'm kind of bending it over my hoop a little bit so that I can make sure it gets in that corner. If you're using a magnetic hoop, it's a little bit flatter, you don't have this big rim around here, that might help as well. All right, so I think we're gonna be good, fingers crossed, that the stitching will go right on top of our other stitching. So now you see why, if it's in your single needle, that you'll need to have this hanging out so that it's not gonna be hitting your machine. So we wanna make sure that it's outwards or towards our front here, so it's not gonna be hitting towards the back of our machine. So we go carefully back into the machine. I'm going to hold it a little bit so it's not going to get caught on anything. And here we go. The last step is going to be that tack down to keep our flap, or to attach our flap onto our back piece. All right, so it started off good here, but when it made this turn, so that's why I grabbed my handy dandy chopstick really quick. These are really cute ones I got from IKEA. They were under $5, I think, for a set of 4 of them. Really cute little wooden bamboo chopsticks, so I got them. As you can see, we were just like right at that line. You can see that it's just right, almost like next to it. It didn't go straight on top. So now you can see the difference in our bulkiness as well. And then I used it to keep it pushed down as it did our last little line here. So I'm gonna kind of pop it out really quick here at the machine so I can show you. And let's take this tape off. And we're gonna unhoop this now. So, machine here. Okay. So this piece can be unhooped, and we're also going to prepare this piece because this piece will be attached to our bottom when it comes to that time. So we are going to remove the stabilizer. So I kind of prepare it by lifting up the vinyl and lifting up our felt. And yes, these two are sticking past it. So removing the stabilizer. This is why this is not my favorite stabilizer, why I really don't like this papery kind. This kind does leave that little white fibery stuff sticking out, you know, depending on which grain you actually tear it on. One side of stitches or tears okay, and then you do the other side and you're like, oh my God, there's a bunch of this fuzzy stuff left. And this stuff does not singe or burn. You can't take the lighter to this stuff. This stuff just catches on fire. It does not, I don't know, it's not my favorite, but it's stiff, so I have to use it in this one. So I don't totally mind, but you just got to make sure you really tear this well so you don't have those little fuzzy ends, because we are leaving the raw ends. So I think I'm talking too much now. Sorry, just giving info. And there we go. This is all torn out. Throw that away. I don't keep that. And then we just want to push our felt back down, you know. So this is our completed part 1 and part 2. So this is the back panel, and this is going to be our top flap. So you will, as we go through, you're going to kind of mold it a little bit and kind of bend it, especially the top flap part, because we've put that Peltex in there. We want to mold it because it's going to be our flap that needs to go, you know, around. So we will be cutting this part out. So we're going to cut this 1/8 close because we don't want this big flap hanging over. And that's kind of like this flap here would have been what would be hanging here. But since it made, you know, such a nice edge, we don't really need to cut it. So we're going to prepare, definitely prepare our bottom part. But if you want, prepare the whole thing. That way things will line up right. But we want to leave at least 1/8 on this, because we're going to do the same thing, line it up just like this onto our bottom piece. But our next part is going to be part 3, which is our front panel. So we've done the back panel and our flap. Our next step will be our front panel. I will get everything prepared and a new hoop done, and I'll be right back. All right, and we are on to, let me turn that off, sorry. We're on to part 3, which is the front panel, part 3. So in this step, I made this little part here, actually goes this way. I made this a separate color for a separate step, just in case if you want to keep it as your guideline for your flap to come down on, or you could eliminate it and not do it and then do your own flap or your own, your own hole wherever you want to when you measure your flap folding over. So that's why it is a separate color with a separate step. Up to you, whatever you want to do with that. I'm going to run all of the steps so that you can see what they are. So first things first, as usual, we have our 3 pieces, felt, vinyl, and our Peltex, cut to exactly what we need to. I want to stress that again, sorry. And we'll put it in, and we're going to get our placement lines first. Okay, so I have my placement box in there. We can see it stitched out. I am first going to put my felt on the back. Just spray that with some tacky spray. It is 109 outside today. Very, very hot today. Not too excited, but it is very warm. Thought I'd let you know. 109. Here we go. I sprayed that and turned it over. I'm rubbing and pressing it down, make sure it stays. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my Pellon piece, and it is cut exactly right inside that box. We need to make sure that's done exactly. And this time I'm going to use the stick glue so we can see how this works. So I'm just gonna, oh, it's purple so I can see it. See how well this works. And there's 2 different sides to this Peltex. One is like a little bit smoother. The other side's a little bit more like a pressed felt, fuzzy kind of side a little bit. So I'm putting this on the smoother side. Let's see how this works. Make sure I got enough glue on here. So there we go. And I'm using, this one I'm going to use the Gorilla Glue and see if maybe that's any different or better. All right, and I'm going to line it up right inside my box. This one's a really close one to the stitch line, so you want to make sure you stay in the box and don't go over on the stitch lines. And I'm going to smooth it down. Yeah, with that curve, it kind of seems like it's, you know, kind of going to stay, but that'll be good. And then we're going to, once again, with our our vinyl, I'm going to use the tacky spray again and tacky this down. If not, you can use your tape on your edges. This panel here that I cut kind of has, if you can kind of see it, it does have a little direction. See where my leaves go up? So it kind of would seem that this would be the top of this piece and that's the bottom. So with this, the way I had it, and the reason why I put that little circle there on that one, which means this is upside down, and that's kind of why I marked my hoop as well, is where that little hole was in the hoop. That was towards the top. It's on the upper side of the middle of our hoop. So that's going to be the top of our panel. So I want to make sure with the directions, have that as the top. Be right back. I'm going to spray this one. And she's actually in the other room. So, all right. And we're going to center this on all sides. Press down, and with that Peltex in there, it's going to raise it a little bit because it's adding that thickness to it. So that's why I use my little chopstick there, is to kind of, as it's sewing along, I'm kind of straightening up and making sure it's smooth so it doesn't give any creases while it's sewing. So you'll see me use this again while it's sewing instead of my little fingers. So here we go. This piece I actually cut a little close. Let me move this down a little bit. Kind of repositionable tacky spray, so that's kind of the good thing. So I happen to not line up correctly, and I had too much on the top versus the bottom. So there we go. Press it down. We're all good. Pop it back in the hoop, the machine. It's now going to stitch out the tack down square all around it and squeezing in that Peltex in there. Then it's going to do all the little holes where the rivets are going to go and where we're going to make our holes. And then the very last one, you can stop if you want. I'm going to let it sew, and that's going to be our little placement dot for our snap or for our magnetic piece that's going to go in. All right, here we go. All right, perfect. And there we are. We are done with this front panel. We have all the rivet markings, the sides, our pelvet. It's kind of, you know, actually I kind of like this. It gives it that little like puff look to the project. It's not really easy to see, I guess, but when you do it, you'll see that kind of gives it a little puffiness and some added dimension to it. So we are all done with this piece. This is our panel, front panel. And like I said, this last part here, it did sew in the beginning too as well as a template. I'm not sure why it did it on the thing, but it was there. And I think that was so that you could, if you didn't want it to sew, I guess you can like, once it's there, not sure. I really don't know why I added it there. I'm probably going to delete it. So I think I was thinking of prior for adding, but you know, your snap or whatever. But here we are. This is our finished piece. Here's the back side. So when we do add our snap or our hardware in here for our magnetic snap or anything, it will be exposed on the inside. That's the inside of the bag, the purse. It's going to have that little button, or if you are using the one with the prongs, and what's going to happen is this little metal piece with our prongs will be here. So in that case, then just have a little patch of felt, and you can use fabric glue or whatever to cover that up, kind of like the patch we did. But there was just no way that I was going to have this done and then be able to create that patch for this. So it's just the inside of the bag, so it's not going to be real seen or noticeable. Just do a small little patch of felt and use some fabric glue or Aleene's glue to keep it down and cover that up if you want to keep it covered. If we use the one that we're going to do that I've already started with the rivet, there's no need to use a patch or cover it. It's just a little smooth button, and it's going to be just fine on the inside and not look that bad. So we're going to prepare this piece as well. And our next step or part is going to be the bottom of the bag, and this is the tricky part again, because this bottom part of the bag is where we are going to be adding our sides. So this is the tricky part in the multi-needle, and it'll be a tricky part in the single needle as well. So we are going to work together on this one. I will be right back. All right, we are now on the part 4, which is the bottom, and this one's important. On this bottom piece, we are reversing it. So it's the same thing, but instead of the felt on the bottom, we're going to put the vinyl on the bottom this time, felt on top, and we'll add our Peltex also on top again, so it'll just be reversed between the stabilizers, which is no big deal. And on this one, we're adding our 2 panels. We're going to be adding our front panel, which the circle is on the top half. That's the top of the design. So I've left a little bit at the bottom so that we can attach it with tape. And then we've got the front panel, or this is the back panel with the flap. So this one also, I left a little bit at the bottom so that we can tack it down and have it stay correctly. So in your hoop, we want to make sure that the design, it should be, but double check it. If it's a multi-needle hoop, there's 2 steps at the end, and those 2 steps, there'll be a yellow line and a red line. You'll probably be making them all one color, but you want to make sure before you do that, that your yellow line is at the bottom and the red line, which is your last step, is at the top. So same thing when you're inside a single needle like this, you want to make sure that the yellow line is at the bottom, and then the red line, which is your last step, is at the top, because the way you're going to lay them and flip them back, you want to make sure all your major part is on this side, which is the arm, and not at the curve of your machine, because otherwise you may mess up your hoop and it won't stitch properly. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put it in the machine and run our placement lines. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip our hoop over, and we are going to add on the back our vinyl first instead of our felt. So it's going to be vinyl first, and I'm going to use my tacky spray again to tack it down. So let's go spray that. And I'm going to center it right on there. And center this one. There we go. Lightly, and then we're going to press down and make sure it's secure on this way. Oh, I have a lot more on one side than the other. So let me move that up a tad bit. The good thing about repositionable tacky spray is you can reposition it. So, all right. And then I'm going to do my Peltex, and I'm going to use the thin one. The bottom's not going to shift as much because it's not hanging, it's laying flat. So there won't be that, importance of it being, it still want to keep it glued down and tacked down in place, especially while we're sewing. But it'd be kind of cool or good to have it tacked down anyways when it's during the bag for stability. So have them down, and we need to peel them up. This one doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. All right. Okay, then on Peltex, we're going to center it right on our lines. There we go. Press it down. It's centered in our box. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my felt and I'm going to actually tack it down as well. I'm going to use some tacky spray. There we go. Center it. All right. Press down. There we go. And the directional doesn't really matter. It's up to you on the directional part of your vinyl. This is the bottom, so it's not going to be completely seen or anything. And be aware of your vinyl on the bottom of its drag, possibly. So we want to make sure that you've either siliconed your plate part, cleaned it really well. If it does stick or anything, then you can use your stabilizer or wax paper on there. So the next part is going to be our tack down of all the pieces and our placement holes for our rivets. Okay, so we have our placement holes. Everything's good. The back side's okay. These are going to be singed a little bit anyways, and when we cut them out, they won't be that noticeable. They won't be there because the rivets will cover it, or the Chicago screws. Now for the tricky part and the important part. So our first stitch, this is the bottom of my hoop, so I pulled it out, is going to stitch along the bottom here. So this one, we want to place our front panel, which is this one here, front panel. The hole is at the top. I've left some at the bottom, and I'm going to place it and line it up. You want to line this line on top of this line, and you want to make sure it's centered also. You want to make sure it's centered this way. And yes, it is a little bit smaller than the other. It's meant to be that way. So that's why you want to make sure you have exactly the same spaces on each side. So you're going to center it between these two, and then you're going to make sure that this line is on top of that line, and then you're going to secure it. All right? It's only going to stitch a straight line, so we can put tape along the top and the bottom. It's not going to be easy on the machine here. I would take it to the table to do it, but I'm kind of trying to show you a little bit what we're going to do here. So this is the important, that you really want to line this up right on it because it's going to stitch over 2 stitches already. So we want to make sure that we're lined up exactly. And we've got this little hump here on both of them, so that's what's going to give us a little bit of trouble. So we look like we're lined up right on it. I'm going to tape across the bottom to secure it. All right, and I'm going to tape across this part too as well. That way I know for sure it's secured. Come back. All right, fingers crossed this works. But yeah, I know it will. So we've got it this way, and this is why this panel goes first, because it's not going to be hanging off. Our other panel has 2 pieces, so that's why it's going to go this way, and you'll have it hanging over your arm or onto the front and not towards the back of our hoop. So. Alrighty, just want to double check again that it didn't shift on me. I'm going to lift a little bit. No, we are good. Looks good. All right, here we go. We're going to do our first panel attachment to our bottom piece. There we go. All right. Oh, we're off a tiny bit. So it's up to you if you want to take it out. We're actually tilted, but you can see it here, what happened. So we're off a tiny bit. That's okay. I mean, it is the bottom. It's up to you. You can take this back out and reposition it again and stitch it again if you want. I am going to go ahead and leave it at that. And we're going to attach the other piece. So it's going to fold back. So we're going to fold it and crease it back. And it's pretty centered. It's not bad on the centered side either. So we were just a tad bit off and a little bit crooked, but we're good. So I'm going to tack this piece down so it stays out of the way. And I'm going to use my tape. This is where we need our lots of tape. And you want to make it long. I might grab another piece here. Really want to make sure this is tacked down. This piece is. All right, so we want to make sure this is out of the way. So our next piece now, and it's going to be felt side to felt side, just like the other one. I'm going to take this over to the table so I can get it really lined up properly because it's such a large piece. And it's the same thing where you're going to line up this line on this line, and then you're going to center it between because it's a little bit wider, and it's wider for a reason. Why our bottom piece is a little bit smaller is because of the pieces we're attaching to it and taking up that space. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up so this line is on top of that line and we're centered between each side. Be right back. All right, so this is what it looks like. I've attached it with the tape and I've lined up my lines and it's centered, taped it on top and the bottom, and we're going to put it back in the hoop, and it's going to go this way, and then we would just want to kind of guide it through, you know, keeping it down with our chopstick is one way. The needle is going to be towards the back, and then same thing if you're on your single needle. You want to make sure that this is going to be this way so that this is hanging over your arm, and this is the empty part for the curve of the machine, the inside of the machine. All right, so here we go. I think with this, the little bulk in there with the Peltex and stuff is what's giving us a little bit of, of our lining up. I may have just pushed it out of the hoop. All right, here we go, last step. All right, we are done with this one, and this one stitched out a lot better. So since I went to the table and took my time at the table, I was able to line it up a lot better. So there we go. And we're going to take our tape off. And our tape off that one. And we can flip it up so it's pretty good. And we'll take the tape there. So we have completed 4 panels. And you have got the start of your purse already. Look at that. So this is going to be pretty awesome. I think it'll be pretty cool. So this is the shell, and we're going to take this out of our stabilizer and prepare it and prep it. I'll show you that part later when we get to the table. Before we assemble it, we'll finish this off. Now we need to do our sides. I'll be right back. All right, here we are. We are now on part 5 and 6. So I'm going to do 5 and 6 together in the hoop. So I'm going to do it with both of these at the side panels. So I'm going to do both of them at once in one hoop, or you can do them separate. It's up to you. Economical in this with one hooping and one stabilizer. So here we go. What I'm going to do is do our placement lines. All right. So we're going to flip our hoop over. We're going to do the back side. We're going to do our felt first. So I'm going to do some tacky spray on my felt. Okay, I'm going to center these to the back side. Here we go. Lightly rub, and then we're going to flip it over and really push it down to make sure it's tacked on. Alrighty, and this is the bottom. So here again, the directional, if you're using directional stabilizer, your pattern is going to have placement holes. The placement holes are at the bottom and no placement holes at the top. So if it's directional, you want to make sure that the top is at the top of your hoop, the bottom, and you'll see all the hole placements on your screen, and you just want to make sure that's all at the bottom. And let me tacky spray these. nothing like holding them in your hand and spraying your hand with glue. So this one's kind of a direction. The leaves are going up on the flower, so I'm going to make that one go that way. And we'll center it, top and bottom, side to side. There we go. And then same thing with this one. It's a little directional, this print part, so it kind of looks like the leaves are going up, flowers that way. That looks upside down, so let's do this way. Center it, press down, or you can tape it, up to you, don't have to do tacky. And put it back in the hoop, and we are now going to stitch out the complete all around tack down and all the little placement holes. Here we go. All right, we have finished our two panels, our right and left side panels. This is the side of our purse. And I'm going to take this, unhoop it, put another one in, and we're going to finish off by doing our straps and our handle. Be right back. All right, we are here. I'm going to do both of them at the same time in the hoop, but you can do them separate if you just want to do and make it a handbag, or I mean a shoulder bag, and then, or you can do the strap or the handle if you just want to do a handbag, or do them both. I'm going to do both and stitch them both out so that you see them. I may not use both of them, but I'm going to stitch them out. So I've moved it all the way in my hoop to the bottom. That way, you know, I have excess stabilizer. I can either use this and stitch something else out if I need to, or just unhoop it and I'll have an extra piece there I can use in like a 4x4 hoop or something. So I'm going to do both together, and I've actually moved it all the way to the bottom of my hoop. So the first step is going to be our handle part, and it's going to stitch out the placement for it, and then we're going to finish the handle, and then it'll do the placement for our strap. So that's if you want to change it or make this different. That's why I did it in two separate steps, but all in one hoop. Here we go. All right, we got our placement, very bottom here. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do my felt first on the back, and then I'm going to do my vinyl in the front. I'm going to take both pieces out at the same time and spray them since they're small. All right. Good. So we're going to center our felt piece first and press down really good once we're on the inside. and center and add our vinyl piece. Tack it down or tape it, up to you. There we go. Back in, and it's going to do our full tack down all around, and it's going to do our four little placement holes for where to put our rivets. And then it's going to do the placement for the two side pieces for our D-rings. Got my two placements here. It's just a little bit over on my felt, but that's okay. We will remove that. So just gotta be careful of your felt pieces, that it's not overlapping. No biggie. It's just a tack down, or I mean, it's just a placement line, so no big deal. All right, so I'm going to do my two felt pieces again, and then the front side will be my vinyl. Do a little bit of tacky on these three. They don't need to be cut that big. They were just scraps I had, so they will be cut smaller. And let me cut a little bit of this vinyl off of here. There we go. And I'm going to put my piece down. Here we go. And our last stitch out, last step, is going to be all the way around, tack, and then our marks for our rivets to make our holes. Here we go. All right, we are done. Perfect. We finished our strap, D-ring, shoulder strap portions, and we also did our handle. And we have all this left over if you want to do something with it. If not, no big deal. You'll have a piece for a 4x4 or whatever you want to do with it. So we will go to the cutting table now and finish off our bag. See you at the cutting table.